smoke weed every day.
Don't do that. It wasn't long ago that marijuana was seen almost exclusively as a dangerous street drug. Associated with laziness, rebellion, and criminality, it was kept in the shadows of society. But today, that image has dramatically shifted, and with it, so has public perception. Across North America and the Western world, marijuana has gone from taboo to trendy. Dispensaries operate like Apple stores. Strains are branded like wine labels. Social media is filled with memes celebrating the high life, and celebrities openly endorse marijuana as a lifestyle, not just a substance. What was once criminal is now commercial. As of recent years, over 20 US states have legalized marijuana for recreational use. Dozens more allow medical marijuana as a doctor's recommendation. Polls show that nearly 7 out of 10 Americans now support legalization, a massive shift from just a decade ago. The result? Marijuana is no longer viewed as a hard drug. For many, it's now seen as a harmless plant, a natural remedy, or even a wellness tool. The cannabis industry has played a major role in shaping this image. Billions of dollars have poured into marketing marijuana as a stress reliever, a creativity booster, a sleep aid, a natural alternative to pharmaceuticals, and in many ways this strategy has worked. Walk into any urban neighborhood and you're likely to see cannabis products being sold as oils, edibles, vapes, and herbal teas. From corporate investors to casual users, marijuana has been culturally rebranded, not as a drug, but as a lifestyle enhancer. This widespread normalization isn't inherently wrong, but it comes with a dangerous blind spot. In the rush to celebrate its benefits and commercial success, we've largely ignored the risks, especially the ones tied to frequent use, smoking, and early age exposure. Many young people now believe marijuana is completely safe. Some even assume it's healthier than caffeine and certainly safer than alcohol or tobacco. But this perception is based more on popular belief than scientific reality. The truth? Marijuana may be legal. It may have medical uses, but when smoked regularly, it can have real long-term consequences on the brain, body, and mental health. This conversation is not about politics or punishment. It's about honesty, and it starts by unpacking not just what people believe, but what the research actually says. To have an honest conversation about the dangers of smoking marijuana, we must first acknowledge the reasons people believe it's safe, beneficial, and even essential. The marijuana advocacy movement has not grown without cause. In fact, many of the arguments supporting cannabis are rooted in science, justice, and personal experience. One of the most compelling arguments in favor of marijuana use is its medical potential. Doctors and researchers have found that components of the cannabis plant, particularly THC and CBD, may help in treating certain conditions, including chronic pain, especially in cases where opioids have failed or pose a high risk, nausea and vomiting associated with chemotherapy, severe epilepsy and seizure disorders. CBD, not THC, is often used here, PTSD, anxiety, and other psychological conditions, according to some patients. Appetite stimulation in patients with HIV or undergoing cancer treatments. Many patients report that marijuana provides relief where conventional medications have not. For some, it's not a high, but a healing tool. Legalization advocates also point to the societal harm caused by criminalizing marijuana use, especially in minority communities. The argument is that decriminalization reduces mass incarceration for non-violent offenses, frees up enforcement resources for more serious crimes, begins to correct racial disparities in drug-related arrests and sentencing. By making marijuana legal or at least non-criminal, supporters say we create a more just and equitable system. A large portion of marijuana use today is recreational, meaning people use it to relax, unwind, or socialize. Supporters argue that marijuana is less harmful than alcohol, which contributes to liver disease, aggression, and drunk driving. They argue it's non-lethal in overdose, unlike opioids or even over-the-counter medications. They say it's a natural plant-based alternative to synthetic drugs or other substances. Many believe marijuana use should be treated like alcohol or caffeine, something to be used responsibly, not demonized. These arguments deserve attention. Medical marijuana can be life-changing for some. Decriminalization may reduce systemic injustice and many users claim marijuana helps them cope with stress, pain, or trauma without causing harm. But these benefits are not the whole story. The issue is not whether marijuana can be useful. The issue is whether it's safe to smoke regularly, especially for recreational use. Just because a substance has medical value does not make it risk-free. Just because it's legal does not mean it's healthy. And just because it helps someone in one area does not mean it doesn't harm them in others. I believe now that I've made the case for marijuana, let's turn the page and explore the science of what actually happens in the brain when it's smoked regularly. While marijuana may feel relaxing, enlightening, or even therapeutic in the moment, what happens inside the brain is far more complex. The short-term high often distracts from the long-term neurological changes taking place behind the scenes. When marijuana is smoked, it doesn't just affect your mood, it alters brain chemistry, rewires cognitive functions, and leaves lasting footprints on how you think, feel, and behave. The primary psychoactive ingredient in marijuana is THC, short for delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol. THC binds to cannabinoid receptors in the brain, particularly in areas that control memory, decision-making, emotion, and coordination. These receptors are part of the endocannabinoid system, a network that helps regulate mood, sleep, appetite, and learning. When THC hijacks this system, it overwhelms the brain's natural balance. Instead of operating normally, the brain begins responding to external chemicals, causing altered perception of time and space, impaired memory and concentration, slower reaction times, difficulty learning and retaining new information. Over time, the brain becomes less responsive to its own chemical signals. This means that normal joy, motivation, and emotional regulation become harder to experience without marijuana. Scientific studies have repeatedly linked chronic marijuana use with reduced cognitive performance, especially in those who start using in adolescence or early adulthood. Even after users stop smoking, research has shown lasting declines in memory, attention span, and IQ. In addition, marijuana has been associated with a motivational syndrome, a condition where users feel indifferent, uninterested, and emotionally flat. This is not about laziness, it's about a chemical shift in the brain's dopamine system, which normally fuels goal-setting and reward-seeking behavior. When that system is regularly flooded by THC, the brain adapts by lowering dopamine sensitivity. As a result, once meaningful goals begin to feel pointless. Marijuana is often marketed as a calming agent, but ironically, it can increase the very symptoms people use it to escape from. Studies have found strong links between heavy marijuana use and anxiety and panic attacks, paranoia and distorted thinking, increased risk of depression, psychotic disorders, especially in people with family history of mental illness. For individuals with genetic vulnerabilities, marijuana can trigger long-term psychosis, including hallucinations, delusions, and schizophrenia-like symptoms. This isn't fear-mongering, it's backed by decades of psychiatric research. Teenagers and young adults are particularly vulnerable. During adolescence, the brain is still developing, forming neural connections, refining judgments, and building emotional regulation. THC interferes with these processes. The earlier and more often someone smokes, the greater the risk of lower academic performance, poor impulse control, disrupted emotional growth, a heightened chance of addiction later in life. Brain scans of teen users often showed reduced gray matter in areas related to memory and emotional control. The long-term effects can be subtle, but they are real. The loss isn't dramatic like a crash. It's a slow erosion that becomes noticeable over years. Marijuana is not harmless, especially when smoked frequently. It affects your ability to think clearly, plan ahead, respond emotionally, and stay mentally healthy. These are not moral concerns, they are neurological facts. If you value your brain, your memory, your drive, your peace, this is information you cannot afford to ignore. Most conversations about marijuana focus on the short-term high, the relaxation, the temporary escape. But what happens when marijuana use becomes a regular habit? What happens to the body, the lungs, the overall health of someone who smokes frequently over months or years? There is a misconception that because marijuana is natural, smoking it is somehow safer than smoking cigarettes. The reality is that smoke of any kind introduces toxins and carcinogens into the lungs. Marijuana smoke contains tar, similar to tobacco, carbon monoxide, which reduces oxygen levels in the body, ammonia, hydrogen cyanide, and other harmful chemicals. Unlike tobacco users, marijuana smokers often inhale more deeply and hold the smoke longer in their lungs. This increases the exposure to irritants and harmful particles. The result? Higher risk of chronic bronchitis, persistent coughing and phlegm, respiratory inflammation, decreased lung function. While marijuana is not as strongly linked to lung cancer as tobacco, that doesn't make it safe. Long-term smoking still damages the respiratory system, especially when combined with tobacco in blunts or spliffs. Marijuana also affects the heart. Within minutes of smoking, THC also causes increased heart rate, sometimes doubling it, fluctuations in blood pressure, narrowed blood vessels. For healthy young adults, this may not seem dangerous, but for individuals with pre-existing heart conditions, high blood pressure, or a family history of cardiac issues, marijuana use can trigger serious problems. Research has linked marijuana use to a higher risk of heart attacks, particularly in the hour after use. Arrhythmias, strokes, especially among young users. Studies suggest that THC may also weaken the immune system. It appears to impair the ability of white blood cells to attack harmful invaders. This can make frequent users more susceptible to infections and inflammation, especially in the lungs. For people dealing with autoimmune conditions or undergoing treatments that depend on strong immune response, this side effect matters. Marijuana may ease symptoms in the short term, but at a cost to the body's defense system. Many users turn to marijuana as a sleep aid. It helps them relax, quiet racing thoughts, and drift more easily, but long-term use often disrupts healthy sleep cycles. Research shows that chronic marijuana use can reduce REM sleep, which is essential for memory and emotional processing, lead to dependency where users can't fall asleep without it, increase the likelihood of insomnia after stopping. What feels like rest may not be restorative, and when users try to quit, sleep problems often return worse than before, creating a cycle of dependency. Marijuana may also impact reproductive health. For men, THC can lower testosterone levels, reduce sperm count, and impair fertility. For women, chronic use has been associated with disrupted menstrual cycles and potential complications during pregnancy. Studies on prenatal marijuana exposure suggest higher risks of low birth weight, cognitive and behavioral issues in children, premature birth. While more research is needed, the current evidence is enough to warrant caution, especially during pregnancy and adolescence. Just because something comes from the heart doesn't mean it's harmless. Arsenic is natural. Tobacco is natural. Poppies, the plants used to create heroin, are natural. The question isn't where it comes from. The question is what it does once it's inside your body. Marijuana may seem like a soft drug, especially compared to harder substances, but its long-term impact on the lungs, the heart, the immune system, and sleep cannot be ignored. Health isn't just about what you feel today, it's about the habits that shape your tomorrow. Many people defend marijuana use with confidence. They say it's safer than alcohol, they claim it's natural, they believe it has medicinal value. And in some cases, they are right. Marijuana can relieve chronic pain, it can help with nausea, it may reduce anxiety for some people in the short term. But when these arguments become a blanket justification for daily use, especially smoking, the real dangers get buried. Denial is not always loud. Sometimes it looks like justification, sometimes it hides behind memes, cultural trends, or misused science. But denial is dangerous because it keeps people stuck in habits that slowly, quietly erode their mental clarity, motivation, and physical health. Legalization has changed how people see marijuana. It is marketed as clean, calm, even spiritual. Weed shops look like wellness boutiques. Edibles are packaged like candy. Social media turns marijuana into a joke or a personality trait. All of this creates an illusion. If it's legal, it must be safe. If celebrities use it, it must be harmless. If it helps with pain or trauma, it must be medicine for everyone. But legality is not the same as safety. Cigarettes are legal, so is alcohol. Both have caused widespread health issues and cost millions of lives. Marijuana is no different. It may be less lethal in the short term, but that does not make it harmless over time. Marijuana, especially when used frequently, becomes a tool for emotional escape. It blunts discomfort, it softens pain, it silences the noise in our mind. But it also quiets our ambition, dulls our relationships, and numbs our ability to feel deeply. You may start to laugh less, care less, try less. When life becomes a fog, filled with half-finished goals and muted emotions, it's not freedom, it's quiet surrender. And the most tragic part is many people do not even see it happening. They feel okay, not terrible, not great, just floating, and slowly the days drift by. This message is not about shaming anyone who uses marijuana. It's about giving people permission to be honest. If weed is affecting your memory, your motivation, your sleep, or your relationships, it's okay to admit that. You don't need to wait until things fall apart to take action. You're allowed to question the habit. You're allowed to outgrow the culture. You're allowed to want more from your life than a buzz and a blanket. Recovery is not a punishment, it's a homecoming. It's remembering who you were before you needed to numb everything away. You get one brain, one mind, one life to live fully and freely. Marijuana may promise peace, but in the long run, it often delivers stagnation. If you want more from yourself, if you want your spark back, your creativity, your clarity, your presence, then it's not about judgment. It's about reclaiming your potential. The science is clear, the consequences are real, and the decision to change is yours to make. For years, marijuana has been labeled a soft drug. Many believe it's non-addictive, just a habit or something people can quit whenever they want. This belief has created a dangerous blind spot. While marijuana may not create the same physical withdrawal symptoms as heroin or alcohol, that doesn't mean it's harmless. Addiction comes in many forms, and marijuana is no exception. Studies consistently show that between 9 and 30% of marijuana users develop some level of cannabis use disorder, CUD. The risk is even higher for those who start young, use heavily, or have a family history of addiction. CUD isn't the buzzword. It's a recognized condition in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM-5. It includes behavioral patterns like persistent use despite problems, difficulty controlling use, continued cravings, emotional or social withdrawal when not using. These aren't just bad habits, they are signs of real psychological dependence. Many users find that over time they need more marijuana to feel the same effects. This is tolerance. It sneaks in slowly. What started as a few puffs on weekends turns into daily use, then multiple times a day. The brain adapts, and what once felt relaxing now feels like the only way to feel normal. This is not freedom, this is dependency, and it often goes unnoticed until users try to cut back or stop altogether and realize just how deeply they rely on it. One of the strongest signs of addiction is not the act of using. It's the repeated inability to stop. Many people use marijuana to try to take breaks. They plan to cut back, they go a day or two without it, but cravings creep in, irritability sets in, sleep becomes restless, boredom feels unbearable, and they return to using not because it's fun, but because it feels necessary. This cycle creates shame, frustration, and self-doubt. It mirrors the same patterns seen in alcohol, nicotine, and other substance use disorders. The substance may be different, but the emotional grip is just as tight. For many, marijuana becomes a way to cope with stress, anxiety, loneliness, or boredom. It becomes a constant companion, the reward at the end of the day, the shield from discomfort, the silence to the noise in the mind. When you feel like you can't function, relax, or be yourself without it, that's not harmless, that's dependency. And even if it doesn't wreck your life overnight, it can quietly erode your mental resilience, self-esteem, and ability to face life head-on. Most people with cannabis use disorder aren't homeless or jobless. They may be working professionals, parents, students, or creatives. They live what seems like normal lives, but underneath the surface, marijuana controls more than they'd like to admit. Addiction doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. It hides in the quiet need to light up just to feel okay, in the resistance to stop, even when you want to, in the guilt after using, followed by the desire to use again. Marijuana may not ruin everyone's life, but for many, it chips away at their freedom, their clarity, and their peace. That is addiction, and it deserves to be taken seriously. Recognizing the dangers of marijuana use is not about shame, fear, or moral judgment. It's about clarity. For many people, the line between casual use and dependence blurs slowly. What begins as occasional relaxation can quietly grow into a daily necessity. The goal is not to demonize marijuana, but to shed light on the full picture, especially the part often left out of mainstream conversations. Education is the first step toward change. When people understand how marijuana affects the brain, the body, and emotional well-being, they can make informed decisions. Awareness brings choice. Without it, users are more likely to fall into habits that damage their mental clarity, motivation, and relationships over time. This includes understanding the difference between responsible, intentional use and compulsive, numbing behavior. It also means recognizing when marijuana stops being something you control and becomes something that controls you. If you or someone you know is struggling with marijuana dependency, guilt is not the answer. Blame does not heal. What helps is honest reflection. Ask yourself, When was the last time you felt truly clear-minded? When did you last go a full week without needing to use? Are you using it to escape or to cope or simply to avoid boredom? These questions are not meant to attack, they are meant to awaken, because accountability is not punishment, it is the beginning of power. Quitting or reducing marijuana use can be difficult, but it's absolutely possible. The brain is plastic, it can heal, rewire and rebuild. Motivation can return, sleep can improve, emotions though intense at first can settle. Life without marijuana may feel unfamiliar at first, but with time it often becomes richer, more present and more purposeful. Support helps. That support might come in the form of a therapist, a trusted friend, a recovery community, or a structured journal that guides you day by day. Tools like this provide direction when things feel uncertain. If marijuana has become a crutch, a routine, or a quiet addiction, you're not alone. Millions of people are waking up to the fact that what once helped them cope is now holding them back. The journey out may not be easy, but it's worth it. You do not need to wait for a rock bottom moment. You can decide today to take your clarity back. You can step into a life that is led by choice, not compulsion. You can heal, and you do not have to do it alone. If you're watching this because you or someone you love is trying to get over marijuana addiction, you're not alone. You're not weak. You're a human being who needs to heal. This video isn't just information, it's a lifeline. Whether you are considering or already in recovery, I want you to know freedom is possible and it starts with the right tools and support. Start small. Download the 7-day addiction recovery journal. It's free and it will help you reflect, stay grounded, and track progress during the most critical early days. And if you need a full recovery routine, grab a 30-day addiction recovery journal packed with daily prompts, relapse prevention tools, and emotional check-ins to help you stay focused after recovery. Are you ready for a complete roadmap? Order a copy of the Ultimate Guide to Overcoming Addiction. Steps, tools, and resources. This is the most comprehensive tool I've created to help you or a loved one break free and stay free. All links are in the description below. Drop a comment below and let us know how your recovery journey is coming along. You're not alone. Let's get this conversation started.